Namaskara. Good morning. Good morning. Namaskara. First of all, I want to say what an honor and what a pleasure it is for me to be here with all of you today. I'm going to talk about how Karnataka can seize this AI moment to propel her development and become even more prosperous. So I'll try and do that in about 25 minutes. I'm going to start by reminding you of the most obvious thing, which is that all revolutions are disruptive. They disrupt the existing order, and they create new winners and lots of losers. And this is true not just for political revolutions, it is at least as true, if not truer, for technological revolutions. So in my talk, I'm going to use lots of examples from history. So 300 years ago, Britain seized the opportunity created by the first industrial revolution, which is based on steam engines, to become the leading economy and the leading imperial power. Unfortunately for us, we missed that. And then we were colonized, and 250 years later, we're still playing catch up. In the last century, America was able to take advantage, first of the second industrial revolution, which was about electric power, and then the third industrial revolution, which is computers and the internet. And they became the preeminent country, and the 20th century was essentially the American century. Today, China is doing better than anyone else, capitalizing on the fourth industrial revolution, which includes biotechnologies, cyber-physical systems, new energy sources, and of course, most of all, AI. In India, we have the same opportunity to seize the moment and become a developed country. And this time, we absolutely cannot afford to miss the bus. There is no Viksit Bharat without AI. Now, how do we make this happen? The thing to realize is India is not just a country. We're a vast, complex subcontinent with huge variations. Each of our states is larger than most mid-sized countries. Our own state of Karnataka has a population about the same as the UK. And it is the states that drive our progress as a country. So when you look at India's success in IT, it was driven by 5 states. But more precisely or accurately, it has been largely driven by 5 cities. And so when it comes to AI, it is absolutely imperative, critical, that Karnataka, being a leading IT state, leads the way and becomes a lighthouse for the rest of the country. So in my talk, I want to focus on how we can become such an exemplar for the rest of India. Now, right now, it's a very peculiar moment to be talking about AI because we're in the midst of an AI bubble. Even Jeff Bezos says, look, there is a bubble and it might burst any time, but that's not a bad thing because it's not a financial bubble, it's an asset bubble. Right now, the truth is that the hype is huge and much greater than the reality. But it is still early days. As Bill Gates famously said 30 years ago, we human beings consistently make the mistake of overestimating the speed at which a new technology is adopted, and we underestimate its eventual impact. And that's what's going to happen with AI as well. I have no doubt that AI is going to be completely transformative and is going to reshape every job, every company, every institution, and every country. And even though it's early days, we're already seeing lots of evidence, growing evidence of the impact of AI. Every week brings new announcements, unfortunately, of job losses. So this morning I was reading the paper, it was IBM. Last week it was 14,000 at Amazon and 14,000 at UPS. Last month it was TCS and 12,000, and so on and so forth. And it's beginning to add up. So employment in IT services and banking, you can see, is already flat or declining. And AI is clearly beginning to impact entry-level jobs. The people who are being most affected right now in India, in the US, and everywhere are recent college graduates because the entry-level jobs are the easiest to automate. To my mind, there is very little doubt that in the short and medium term, AI will destroy many more jobs than it creates. But in the longer term, as people and society adapt, we may well imagine so many new uses of AI that there could be a new golden age. I'll come to that. So I want us to really go back in history. And I want to go back to the first industrial revolution, which transformed the world through the mechanization of manufacturing and agriculture. And as we now know, it created a huge surge in wealth and prosperity and living standards, particularly in Britain and Europe. The thing to remember, though, is very few of those who lived through that period of time actually benefited. The introduction of machines like water frames, textile carding machines, automatic spinning looms, they eliminated many jobs. They sucked child labor into factories, and they depressed wages. Handloom weavers, who were once known as Britain's labor aristocrats, became losers, and 3 generations of workers were made worse off as steam-powered automation took off. Early factories were horrible, dangerous places to work, as Charles Dickens described in many books. And life expectancy in Manchester in 1850 was 32 years, compared to the rest of England, which was 42 years. There was stunting. Men, on average, became shorter in 1850 than they were in 1750. So this resulted naturally in a backlash. So workers got together, they mutinied and smashed machines. This was called the Luddite movement. Britain then passed draconian laws and making it punishable by death to destroy machines. And in 1812 and 1813, many workers were publicly hanged to sell a chilling message discouraging those who were thinking about dissenting. It took a full 100 years for the benefits of the Industrial Revolution to be realized. But by 1900, real wages had doubled, lifespan increased from 41 years to 50, population and employment both doubled. So why I'm saying this is history is a good reminder that technological change may bring benefit over the long run, but the benefits are unequal, and in the short-term adjustment costs can represent more than a lifetime for most workers. And there is a risk that this could happen with AI as well. So how do we avoid such a painful transition? How do we prepare ourselves and everybody for what is to come? And that's what I want to talk about, because it's all about skilling. So let me start by unpacking how AI is changing jobs and knowledge work. Specifically, I want to talk about 5 ways, which Secretary also alluded to, in which work is being redefined. The first is the era of stable jobs and stable careers is over. This is a 20th century artifact which will apply to fewer and fewer of us in this century. There will be fewer and fewer jobs, but the good news is there's going to be lots of opportunity. And I'm going to come back to how we convert that opportunity, but more and more of us are going to have to start thinking about self-employment, gig work, and entrepreneurship rather than jobs. Second, college degrees and pedigrees will matter less and less. Demonstrated capabilities, as Mr. Reddy mentioned, are going to matter more. Increasingly, you're seeing employers, whether it's Google or TCS, relying on testing more than degrees and resumes. The third point, finding a job out of college is going to become more difficult because, as I said, it's the entry-level jobs that are easiest to automate. We already have a crisis of unemployment amongst educated youth in India in China, in Africa, in America, everywhere. And AI is likely to make this a bigger challenge. And of course, if you're a recent college graduate, you're wondering, how am I supposed to get started if there are no entry-level jobs? And for companies too, this is a crisis, because if you don't constantly take in new people, where are your middle managers going to come from? Where are your future leaders and experts going to come from? Point number 4 that is a big change is demographics. For 100 years, our grandparents, parents, and ourselves, we have lived a very neat, simple 3-stage life. It's 20 years of learning, followed by 40 years of earning, and then retirement, and it's done. Now, with all of us living longer, but many more changes along the way, we have to plan for what is called a multi-stage life, where learning is lifelong, and we have to integrate learning, earning, and enjoyment throughout our lives. Finally, taken together, these shifts mean that adaptability is the most important thing. Adaptability is the new employability. What I mean by that is, when I was growing up, employability was all about technical skills. So you studied to become an engineer or a software developer or a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, because it is these technical skills that got you a job. Today, these technical skills are still important, but what matters more is the ability to adapt, to move to where new opportunities and jobs are, to deal with unfamiliar situations, and to cope with shocks. And so the question becomes, these are the big shifts, what are the mindset, what are the skills, and what safety nets do people need to adapt to this new reality? Now, you can see a picture out there. That's the title of my new book, which I've been working on for the last 2 years. What the heck do I do about AI? And I've been working on this with my colleague, Will Poole. And we've interviewed lots of people, and we've thought deeply about it. Our research has led me to believe that there are 3 bundles of skills that are absolutely critical if you're going to survive and flourish in this AI age. The first and obvious one is digital skills. We need every single person in Karnataka and every single person in India to have basic digital skills. Now, 20 years ago, when I was running Microsoft India, digital literacy, we paid a lot of attention to digital literacy, but it meant something very different. It was the ability to use a PC to access the internet and use Microsoft Office. Today, digital literacy means something very different. It's the ability to access information, to communicate, collaborate, transact on the net using a smartphone. But now what we need is to go beyond that. Everybody needs to be able to use basic AI tools. Everybody needs to be able to prompt effectively. Everybody needs to have the judgment and critical thinking to interpret the results, to filter out fake information and fraud. And we need to make this part of the required curriculum in all schools, all colleges, all ITIs. We need to particularly focus on digital skills for the most marginalized, who are farm laborers, gig workers, women in self-help groups, small women entrepreneurs, and so on. Because it turns out that they may be the biggest beneficiaries of AI. To do this, partnerships with private sector companies is critical because they have the incentive, they have the money, and they have the content, and they really need a lot of users. And so they're willing to train and certify people at scale. Again, when I was at Microsoft, we launched Project Shiksha as a digital literacy program in 2005. And over the next 10 years, we trained 800,000 teachers in government schools in 12 states who've trained 10 million children, again from government schools, in basic digital literacy. So today we need many more such scale partnerships with the likes of Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, Infosys, and so on. And the good news is they're also hungry. So digital skills is the first one. The second critical mindset and skill is entrepreneurship. To me, this might well be the super skill or the Brahmastra of this century. Entrepreneurship is important for 2 reasons. First, as I said, there will be fewer jobs, but there will be lots of opportunities. So if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you can make a living. This is the crucial difference. So far, we have seen entrepreneurship as a career choice. Somebody goes looking for a job, somebody else decides to start a business. In the 21st century, entrepreneurship is not a career choice, but a basic life skill. Just like literacy and numeracy, every one of us will benefit from having an entrepreneurial mindset. The second reason why entrepreneurship is so critical is to create the jobs of the future. We need tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs who are imagining new possibilities with AI and starting the next generation of businesses and creating new jobs. This is how India will win with AI. I see a lot of excitement about building our own LLM, having our own chips, controlling our own tech stack. These things are important, but India will win only by using AI broadly in society to improve productivity and create new businesses. This is the only way I can think of to avoid a jobs apocalypse. Fortunately, we know entrepreneurship is something that can be learned. I run an organization called GAME, along with Madan Padaki and Mekin Maheshwari. Mekin, my co-founder, has been running the world's largest entrepreneurship curriculum in 10,000 government schools across 12 states through his own Udyam Learning Foundation. So this morning, as we are sitting here, 15 lakh students of standard 9 to 12 in the poorest of schools in these 12 states are learning entrepreneurship, and they're learning it experientially. Every one of them will be given the opportunity to get into teams and start and run a small business through the summer holidays. Over 10 years, the results are absolutely fantastic, and it should be our goal to ensure that every single young person in Karnataka is exposed to entrepreneurship by 2030. It is the single most effective and fun way to help people learn fundamental things like agency. Agency means what? The belief that I have the power to make some of my own decisions, like creativity and problem solving and storytelling and resourcefulness and resilience. These are the essential skills for success in the 21st century. So I've talked about digital skills being the first bundle, entrepreneurship being the second. The final third bundle of skills are specific human skills. See, the good news is, for all its power and despite the rate at which AI is improving, it'll continue to have limitations. And for a very, very long time, we will still need humans in the loop. Sometimes people ask me, hey, if we have ChatGPT and it's so good, why do I need a marketing department? Well, ChatGPT may be able to give you 10 ideas for your marketing campaign in 10 minutes, but you still need a human to decide which of these ideas is good and which of these are nonsense. You need context and you need that judgment. You still need somebody to work with the teams to implement the ideas and take ownership and accountability. And so you need all those skills. You need leadership, you need communication, you need working in teams, and so on. There is still no substitute for things like curiosity and leadership. And this is why I love the words of this Nobel Prize-winning physicist, Arno Penzias. He says, if you don't want to be replaced by a machine, well, stop acting like one. And unfortunately, our education system in India and every country is still preparing people to do the things that machines already do better, which is what? Find information, solve structured problems, and so on. So how do we help people learn to be more uniquely human? So already experts are saying, look, we made a mistake when we dumped humanities for science and engineering. We need to bring back humanities. People need to study literature. They need to study performing arts, learn performing arts, because this is important for the development of the human parts of our brain. I've already talked about how entrepreneurship teaches people how to do some of these things. But the single most effective way I think, is either what we call change making or volunteering. Getting people to volunteer with civil society organizations to solve civic problems around them. Let me give you an example. I was with UNICEF for 5 years, and I helped put together a program called Generation Unlimited. And in Generation Unlimited, one of the things we try to do is take young people from the poorest communities and schools in South Asia, Africa, and see if we could get them to be like leaders. The approach we took was very practical. We approached children, young people in schools and their communities through youth organizations and volunteers. So somebody would approach a young person and say, look, we don't talk about leadership. You approach this person and say, what's the biggest problem you have? And they may slowly open up and say, you know, the biggest problem I have is the school toilet has been broken for 1 year. And you say, what did you do about it? Well, I spoke to the teacher. She did nothing, so I spoke to the principal. No interest. So now we've given up and we just use the field. Then the youth volunteer will ask, why didn't you fix it? Have you tried? And mostly you'll get a look of incomprehension. How am I supposed to fix it? Then you say, look, come back next week with 3 or 4 friends. And they come back, and then you help them fix the toilet. And this is when the mind changes. Suddenly you realize, hey, I don't have to be a victim waiting to be rescued. Maybe I can begin to solve some of my own problems. And oh, by the way, when I take some steps towards solving it, other people are willing to join me. This is leadership. And then you help them solve bigger and bigger problems. So over these 7 years, UNICEF and Generation Unlimited have worked to convert hundreds of thousands of young people into leaders. And so this, for me, is the finest way of getting people to learn the most essential skills of the 21st century, which is self-confidence, empathy, communication, teamwork, learning to lead by influence. So the question is, how do we get millions of young people in Karnataka to learn these skills? So right here in Bangalore, I have a young friend, a mentee called Kuldeep Dantewada. Some of you may know him. He's started an organization called Reap Benefit. And Reap Benefit hosts a digital platform that enables young people, they call them Solve Ninjas, to develop solutions to civic and climate problems. Over 10 years, more than 150,000 young people in 14 states have implemented 100,000 improvements and developed 500 solutions. So in Karnataka, I would say we could take some of these platforms and teach every young person, give every young person the opportunity to lead. You know, as I was reflecting on this speech, 40 years ago, I was a student at IIT Bombay. In those days, every one of us had to opt for either NCC or NSS. It was compulsory to join the National Cadet Corps or else volunteer in National Social Service. Not being the physical kind, I went into NSS. And it was a great experience. So if I had any power today, I would bring back these programs as compulsory programs for all young people to build citizenship, to build cohesion, but for most of all, for building these practical 21st century leadership skills. So these are the 3 foundational skills that I think we need to work on to build in our population for the age of AI. I want to briefly talk about the second critical policy issue, which is helping workers through difficult transitions through their lifetime. AI is fundamentally an adaptive challenge, and we need to help people through the many shocks that AI will create. Today, companies unload employees at will with just an announcement and take zero responsibility for them. It is like carelessly throwing away a toothpaste tube. And it is not morally right to expect people to fend for themselves because they cannot. As the scale of job losses mount, this is going to become a societal catastrophe unless we do something about it. So I think businesses have both a moral responsibility to society as well as a practical responsibility to sit together with government and with education and civil society organizations to brainstorm what are the safety nets that we need to create and what lifelines do we need to create to help workers through their transitions. What are some of these ideas? First of all, as I've said, we need to skill all our employees, all workers, in these three foundational skills. If entry-level jobs are going to be fewer, then we need to mandate high-quality apprenticeships and internships so that people get the first experience of good work. You need to have effective programs for reskilling workers as their jobs get automated. And if the role gets ultimately eliminated, the severance terms must be humane, allowing people to adapt, including reskilling and placement services. Another really important idea is micro-credentials. Again, at UNICEF, we worked with Microsoft in the last 5 years to create something called Passport to Earning. P2E enables people to continuously learn practical skills, including digital literacy, financial literacy, entrepreneurship, or employability skills, and get credentialed or little certificates for that. And the content is completely aligned with NEP. So I just checked, but there are already 1 million people who are using this platform, and more companies and employers are joining. Beyond Microsoft includes Capgemini, Accenture, SAP, Unilever, and so on and so on. My point is, the ideas and solutions already exist. They just need to be taken to scale through formal policies and programs. And the partnership with private sector companies and associations like NASSCOM and CII is critical. In some cases, the government may need to offer incentives and tax breaks, but in some cases, we may simply need to mandate things like the CSR policy. For instance, I think it's a very good idea to say companies must invest 2% of revenues on skilling their workforce. So let me wrap up by reminding us that, look, AI is not something that we need to be fearful of. It is like any powerful technology or tool. It can be used for good or bad. It depends on us and how we act as leaders. I see AI and the fourth industrial revolution being the greatest opportunity for the advancement of India. And as a leading IT state, Karnataka must show the way for the rest of the country. We have to become India's AI skilling lighthouse. And for this, we should probably think seriously about an AI skilling mission that brings together Samaj, Bazaar, and Sarkar. Let's make it happen. Thank you so much.